Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November edition of November 2024. For those of you raking through the archives of the program Off the Shelf, where Don Gepfer interviews a writer about their book and their path to writing that book. We are here as a project of the Sisters in Crime Atlanta chapter, and we welcome all of you to this, and in particular first-time attendants and visitors. They're always welcome here on Off the Shelf. This morning, we're very excited to have one of our own chapter members, SC Merritt is her nom de plume, and she goes sometimes by Sarah. She's a cozy mystery author, and her stories feature female sleuths, plots with a twist, and a little sprinkle of romance. Her Sweetwater Springs Southern Mystery series is set in a small Alabama town full of quirky characters. Now, I'm sure you couldn't find a real Alabama town that had that. Delicious restaurants and lots of murder. And she includes yummy recipes in each book. Her other series is the Bucket List Mysteries, and they feature two retired friends who purchase an RV and hit the road, and they've got a list of destinations they're trying to hit and keep running into murders along their path. When she's not writing, she's traveling, watching classic movies, TV shows, or collecting flamingos, presumably not out of other people's yards. She lives in Georgia with her husband and a miniature schnauzer, Izzy, and dreams of moving to a tropical locale someday. So we're very excited, SC, to have you aboard for Off the Shelf, and I'm going to turn it over to Dawn. Take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on a beautiful, so far beautiful Atlanta Saturday right before Thanksgiving. We appreciate you being here. We know there's a lot going on out there and a lot of things you could be doing, yet you choose to be here with us. So very happy to have you. And Sarah, I'm going to do my best to call you SC, but I know you as Sarah. Okay, if I can call you Sarah, we'll go
totally
with
fine.
But Sarah, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, we've talked about this for a long time, and I think the timing is perfect. It worked out really well because you have just released I believe it's the 7th novel in one of your series. So perfect timing. We're going to talk about that. The goal of this program, the reason why we call it Off the Shelf, is the goal is to do an outreach to the reader community and have our authors' books off the shelf and in the hands of those readers. So we certainly want to get to the writing portion and learn more about your books. But we always start by getting to know our author a little bit better. And I'm going to ask you to tell us your backstory.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely not one of those who has been dreaming of being a writer since she was a little girl. I never wanted to write anything. I wasn't required to write in school, so I don't know where it came from. But around, I guess maybe 2019, I just decided I watched a lot of stuff on TV. I love all the cozy stuff, and the Hallmark movies and murders and mysteries and all that, and Murder, She Wrote, and grew up watching Perry Mason and all of that. And so I decided, I thought, maybe I can just do this myself. So I just did it for fun. And I let my mom and my daughter read it, and they were like, "You should really publish this." And I was like, nobody's going to read this. So I did it, and it just took off. And so, of course, 2020 hit, I released book 1, Potluck and Pandemonium, in 2020. And then we had a year of plenty of time to write. And so I did the first 4 pretty quickly. And then as everybody went back to work, everything kind of slowed down. So, but they say write what you know. And so I'm a church secretary. So I decided to make a church secretary my sleuth. And she has evolved over the 7 books. And I think this last book, she quit her job as a secretary and started working full time for her daughter, who opened a bakery. So it's turned into more of a culinary bakery kind of series, a little bit. But yeah, that's how I got started. And I just used my fictional version of my hometown in Alabama, which is Double Springs, and changed it to Sweetwater Springs. And it has a lot of my landmarks that I grew up with that are real, Smith Lake, and just a lot of that lake life that's really popular. The middle of the Bankhead National Forest is where Double Springs is. And so I used a lot of that, and a lot of the things that are included are real things that happened, or maybe a little bit embellished. But yeah, it's been a blast. And then the second series, I just kind of wanted to take a break, and I love reading the ones that are like partners. There's like 2 main characters, and sometimes it's sisters or whatever. And there's one series that I love. It's called the Dune House Mysteries by Cindy Bell, and it's 2 best friends that open up bed and breakfast. And I just love the way that she wrote, where they're they're both very important to the story, that one's not more important than the other. And so I wanted to try my hand at that. So I decided to do the RV traveling thing, and it's been fun too.
So let's go back to the first series, the Sweetwater Springs. And you said you based some of it on your hometown in Alabama. And you said there's a little bit of an embellishment to some true things. Are
yeah.
you talking murders?
Oh no, not the murders. Not the murders. At least I don't think any of the murders are real. But a lot of the characters, like when I go back home, all my friends, they just all love my books in the North Alabama area, because they recognize all the spots that I'm talking about, but they also recognize the people, even though I've changed names, and like, I know who that is. So that's fun. And yeah, I have one friend back home that his wife reads all my stuff, but he gave me, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but I mean, it's like this thick of like unsolved murders in Winston County. So I'm like, what? So and that's that's my tiny little county in Alabama, and so I've got to look through that for sure. I haven't read through it all the way, but yeah.
Is
Maybe
it like,
we can use some of these?
I was going to say, is it like a file, or is it a book?
No, it's a published book.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, it's huge. And so I mean, it goes way back, into the 1800s or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a resource.
Yeah, for sure. When we moved to Georgia, we moved to Fayette County, and I had picked up a book like that. It's not very thick, but of, just crime in Fayetteville going way back. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, and you've inspired me to maybe go grab that and pull it off the shelf and revisit it. So
Yeah.
for inspiration. Okay, so you said you grew up in this town, in a small town in Double Springs in Alabama. And how did you get from Alabama to Georgia?
Well, I went to school in Hattiesburg, Mississippi at USM, and that's where I met my husband. He's from around Meridian is where he spent most of his growing up years, in a town called Decatur, Mississippi. His dad was a pastor there. I met him, and we got married in 1983, and we lived in Shreveport for a few years. He's an accountant, so he went to work for Pete Marwick. It's changed names over the years, but whatever it is now, Pete Marwick Mitchell, Pete Marwick something and other. Um, and then we moved to, he was traveling all the time, and we had our first child, and he was never home for that first year, and he hated it. So he took a job with what used to be called Sunburst Bank
Mhm.
in Grenada, Mississippi. And we were there for many years, and then the bank got sold, and it was Union Planters, and we moved to Memphis, to Olive Branch, just outside of Memphis, and he was working for them, and then it got sold, and now it's Regions. So everybody knows Regions. But so during that, he got tired of banking, and he started working for Hilton Hotels, and which I loved because the perks were awesome. But COVID got that job, and it put a huge dent in the hotel industry for a while there. And so he lost his job there and got the job in Atlanta with Inspire Brands, which is they own Jimmy John's and Sonic and Dunkin' Donuts and Buffalo Wild Wings and several other things.
Different kind of perks with that one?
Yeah, well, no, we don't get any perks with that. Which, I was kind of surprised, but no, every once in a while he brings home a t-shirt, but that's about it. But yeah, that's how we got over here. And yeah, we love it. It's so weird because we had been over and we did the train ride, up to McKaysville and all this, and several years ago, and we just fell in love with North Georgia. And so it was definitely on our list of maybe retire destinations. So when we moved over here, we wanted to get as far out of Atlanta as we could get and still him be able to drive within an hour. So we were heading up north, and we thought we were going to go further north, but then we ended up actually moving further south. But eventually we'll get back up there.
And you had mentioned that you're a church secretary, and that has been your career. So with these different moves, you've been able to stay in that industry?
I mean, I did a little bit of other things. I was a teller for a little while. I was the noontime teller. So I would go in like at 11 and work to 2 so the tellers could go to lunch. And then I was supposed to be able to be home by the time my kids got off the school bus. But because I talk too much and don't pay attention, my drawer never balanced. And so I can't tell you the number of times that I had to call my neighbor and say, "Will you get my kids off the bus? My drawer doesn't balance." So I realized real quick, teller wasn't for me. I don't pay attention. I can't drive and talk at the same time either. So that's another story. I get lost. But yeah, for 15 years, no, for 10 years, I was at a church in Olive Branch, the church that we attended. And then I went to work for another church in town that we didn't attend. By the way, if you are a church person, you know that's probably better because then you don't know all the inside stuff that you wish you didn't know. But then 15 years at that church, and then we moved here, and I went back to work at the church where I attend, which I said I would never do, but I am, and I've been there 3 years, so it's all I know how to do. I mean, every time I think about trying to get another job, I think, I don't know how to do any of that anymore. It's all I've done for 30 years, so.
Well, you do know how to do something else, and that is write cozy mysteries.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite ready to segue into your writing career, but that was perfect, and so I had to jump on that. But really, before we go there, I want to talk a little bit more about COVID, because you mentioned that you guys were in Mississippi then, and your husband lost his job, but he got a job in Atlanta. So 2020 was a really busy year, it sounds like to me. number one, your husband changed jobs and you needed to change locations. So you moved, and you also wrote 5 books.
Well, we
in
didn't
2020.
actually move until
Okay.
21.
Okay.
My daughter and son-in-law moved in with us. They were in New Orleans when COVID hit, and they're both in culinary. He teaches at a culinary school, and she works in hotel restaurant management. So they lost their jobs, and they moved up to Mississippi with us and moved in with us. And of course, they're both chefs, so all we did was eat and watch Netflix and play cards. It was awesome. But aside from the fact that my husband lost his job, but we were just eating, and so it didn't really matter, drowning your sorrows or whatever. But he ended up getting a job with Inspire in December. So it was from like, I don't know, maybe May to December, but they weren't in the office. And so he worked remote. And he said, there's no sense in moving until we think they're going to go back into the office. So we didn't even move over here until September of the next year of 21.
Wow.
But during that time, I was writing, and then once everybody started going back in the office, it slowed down. But yeah, it was crazy. But 21 was really the crazy year because that's when we actually moved. And my writing schedule changed. Back home, my church was closed on Fridays. And my husband obviously was in an office working in Memphis. So Friday was my writing day. I wrote all day Friday and then sometimes at night and stuff. But when we moved over here, this church works till noon. And even if I was home, my husband works from home on Friday still. So it's not quite the same. I just can't really find big chunks of time to get into that world. I mean, if you only have like an hour, so it takes me that long to go back and read what I've written and figure out where I was in the story. Because I don't get to write every day. It's just whenever I can. So it slowed me down a lot. So it took me longer to write Hot Cars and Homicide than any book that I've written so far. It took me almost probably 9 months. So it usually doesn't take me long. So
Well, and you also shared with us earlier that you don't have an office in your new home. And so your writing schedule has been disrupted. It's not what it used to be. And when you are home and you have time, you're not somewhere where you can necessarily seclude yourself. So,
no, it's just whoever walks through, or of course, if you've got dogs, you know that the minute you sit down and get a laptop in your lap or something, they're by the door wanting to go outside. So, it's just all of that. But I've tried writing. I've tried like going to Starbucks or going somewhere to write, and I eavesdrop too much, and I get all sidetracked listening to everybody's conversations, and I just couldn't do it. I don't know how people write with there's that much going on around them. I have to have really quiet. So, and I have been known to stay after hours at church and just write because it's quiet when everybody's gone home, and I've got computer, I've got everything I need, so I just stay for a little while and write.
Deborah Mitchell, who has joined us, she was on Off the Shelf wow, gosh, you know what? She was off the shelf at the beginning of this year, and we're
I think it
already
was
at the end of this
January.
year. Yeah, and we're at the end of the year. Good
Yes.
Lord, that a year has flown by. But Deborah mentioned that she went to a Starbucks and was able to write. So, Deborah, you have any tips for Sarah?
Really? How do you block that out?
Well, I used to write, excuse me, I'm in my pajamas, so that's why I'm not, and eating, so that's why I'm not on video. But I used to write at the Whole Foods in Alpharetta at the food court area of Whole Foods, but I had the flexibility of my own schedule, so I would go for an early morning run and then go in there when there was no one else. They would long before the lunch crowd. And I, through all of my university years and my whole life, I've always just been able to, when focus, tune everything out. So I would go and sit there and start writing, and all of a sudden I would look up and the lunch crowd had arrived. All the tables were filled all around me, and I hadn't even seen them come in. So I don't think it's for everybody, but it worked for me. And I stopped writing when COVID happened because they shut the food court down at Whole Foods. I'm like, what am I going to do now?
Oh, wow. So that was the only place,
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, it's the only place outside of my home.
So,
Online app that you can get that plays the background noise from a coffee shop.
oh, yeah, Deborah, you need that.
Yeah.
Sarah needs.
Maybe if I'd use that to, train my brain to listen to that, and then I can actually go somewhere and write.
Yeah. So I am really impressed with a couple of things. When I started looking into your writing history, I was surprised to find out that you did not publish until 2020. And then when I see your catalog and I see how many books you knocked out, I think 5 books and a novella in 2020. And Sharon made a comment, and Lance agreed with her in the chat, where she said 9 months still seems fast. And I will tell you that we've been doing this about 4 years, off the shelf, and you are the first author that we've talked with that has ever put out that number of books in that time period. So especially for someone who just hasn't pursued writing as a career, and you started it as fun, and then obviously you were able to crank them out. So you have idea after idea that you've been able to jump and create another story. So that's impressive to me. I'm very impressed by that. And I'm sure the other authors that are here are also impressed by that. So we'll start with that first book. And you said you were just writing for fun initially, but at some point it became serious, like it became a truly developed story. So where did you even get the idea? Story.
I am definitely a pantser, and so and truthfully, the finished product does not look anything like the story I initially wrote. When I let some people read it, they were like, "Oh, you got way too many characters, and you need to get rid of this and this and this." Like, I actually had a husband in the first, but and my husband read it, and I said, "I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to kill you before the first book ever happens. I'm not going to have a husband, and you're already going to be dead." And he's like, "Well, dang." Yeah, I had to redo some stuff because it was so much. Like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue. And so I've been really, really self-taught in all of the writing stuff, and just reading tons of people, people that really inspired me in the cozy mystery genre, and to see how, I mean, and over the years I've learned, that's what, 4 years, 5 years,
Sure.
but I've learned, when's the body supposed to drop, and how you try not to bore your readers with. I know what I like in a book, and I try to make mine kind of like that. But yeah, I did. Those first few came pretty easy because I had lots of ideas about, different things I wanted to do. And it slowed down a lot, obviously because of my work schedule, but still it slowed down a lot because now I don't think in that world all the time anymore. I've got so much going on around with work and stuff. So I have to really stop and think about what my next one's going to be. And I've got a couple more working for this series, and then I'll probably go back to the bucket list and try a few more locations. I've had all kinds of readers say, "Oh, they need to go here, or they need to go there." So yeah, it's fun to me, and I guess I just think in murder.
Well, I love that you, you know, told your husband, like, yeah, like, you're sorry, yeah, I think that's great. So you started, now, when you wrote your first book, and that one was Potluck and Pandemonium, did you know it was gonna be a series then?
Um, well, I mean, once I decided to publish it, you know, like I said, I wrote it as fun, and then, but once I really decided to do something with it, I went ahead and I had all these ideas, and so I thought, well, I can't put all these ideas in one book. That would be crazy to have all these different. So I thought, okay, this idea will be this book, and this one will be this book, and so I had the first maybe, well, I actually had the first 1, 2, and 4. I wrote really quickly.
Mhm.
But after I had read so many series that did things around the seasons, you know,
Mhm.
like, you know, a lot of cozies, you'll have a fall one and they'll have a festival or you'll have a whatever. And I thought, I really want something in between 3 and in between Lakefronts and Larceny,
Mm.
which was set in the summer, and then Moonshine and Murder, which was set in the fall with a fall festival. And I said, I really wanted something else. So I thought, okay, football season, you know, and so that's when I did the reunions, and it was written out of order, and I stuck it in, wrote it. It was probably the quickest one I've ever written because I wanted to get it in before I published, and I made Moonshine and Murder book 4.
Mhm.
Um, but, and then I wanted a Christmas one, and then I wanted an Easter one.
Mhm.
And so, those just all came pretty quickly. And, so yeah, they did, I don't know. It just kept going and going, and people actually were reading it. And so I was shocked, but it's been really fun.
And so when you decided to publish, what exactly did that look like when you decided to publish?
Well, for about a hot minute, I thought about trying to find a publisher, pitching and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm too old. And I'm very, very impatient, and I'm a control freak. And so I was like, I think I'm just going to do it myself. You know, if you want it done right, do it yourself. I'm also one of those don't teach an old dog new tricks thing. And so I had to learn all about, you know, formatting and just everything, and the whole Drafted Digital. I do everything through Drafted Digital, and then I do KDP and drop it into all of that. And so I do everything myself except for cover design and editing. I have a real editor that knows what she's doing. But other than that, I do it all myself. And it was a little more than I thought about before I got into it. But then I thought, well, you're in it now, so you might as well
Mhm.
jump in. So I've done all that. I like it. I like having control over when, you know, if I publish when I want to. I don't have anybody telling me a deadline, except the ones I give myself, you know,
Mhm.
or readers that are like, when's the next book? When's the next book? When's the next book? So
Mhm.
at least it's all on me, and you know, so I like that.
So the cover design, that's one thing I noticed. I saw a graphic of all of your books. It didn't include the Hot Cars and Homicide, the most recent one, but it had, you know, it had all the books in a row. And the one thing that I really struck me is how identifiable they are. They are so consistent in design. It looks really professional, and to me that's impressive coming out of the gate and having the instinct to pursue that, and then to stick with it.
Um, I I looked back. I went, you know, I pulled up like all these cozy mysteries, like the top 100 or whatever, at the time, and the ones that I was drawn to the most were the simple ones with like one big thing in the middle as more than just a whole lot of stuff. And so I found a cover designer that I kind of like dummied one up for her, and I said, on every cover, I'm going to want like either 1, 2, or 3 big items. And like the first one's just got the pie with the letter opener in it. And then the next one has the car tag. So at first it was just like one, and then they got to be, 2 or 3, but they're always just really big, identified by the bloody handprint. The first one didn't because it's got blood on the pie, on the letter opener, but the rest of them has the handprint on it somewhere. So, but I just love that simple, and obviously it's very colorful. And so when I go to like book fairs or festivals or something, and I'm set up with all different genre authors, not just mystery and stuff, people come to me every time, oh, you write children's books. And I was like, because they saw me from across the room and they're all colorful and really cool. But so I ended up having a big table covering thing made for those things that says it's just good, clean murder. So people will know that it's not a children's book because there's a lot of murder.
So one thing you include in these mysteries is a recipe or recipes, right? So are you, where do the recipes come from? Are you a good
Well,
big cook?
because the character, like Glory, the main character, is not a very good cook. Her daughter is in culinary school. Well, when the series starts, she's graduating from culinary school, which that's patterned after my daughter, who is that's what she went to school for. And so I started out with like, okay, I'm going to put a couple of simple Glory recipes and then a couple of recipes that are a little more difficult. So that's what I try to do. And some of them are mine, some of them are hers. And some of them are ones that I found somewhere, and I always try to give credit on those if it's something in Pinterest. But but I always try to at least make them before I put them in, or at least have had something that my daughter made, because I can't make the stuff that she can make. But yeah, there's a lot of simple ones that I make all the time, and I've had a lot of my readers just say, "Hey, I just made the crack dip or the hodgepodge soup and served it, and we loved it." And there's a book club that they did my recipes, for book club and everything. So that's fun.
Yeah, and so you answered one question, which is, do you test the recipes yourself? And my next question is, do you tailor the recipe to the story?
Yeah, especially, well, with the Sweetwater series, they all come, well, if you've read too far in further into it, it starts out with Macy, the daughter, has the coffee shop and bakery. And so she also has like little luncheon specials and things. And so a lot of it's stuff like that. Well, as time goes on, her boyfriend slash husband has an Italian restaurant. And so there's some Italian recipes thrown in once he comes into the picture. And in the bucket list series, Maisie she is retired from she had a home cooking restaurant back in Mississippi. And so a lot of her things are more like that. And it depends on where they are. Like in the Nashville book, they went to this thing at the Grand Ole Opry, and they got backstage passes and got to go to the VIP party and everything. So it was like some hors d'oeuvres and different things that they would have had there. And then they went to Savannah, and that she'd made shrimp and grits. And so it's just whatever happens to be in the locale.
So that's a good opportunity for us to start talking about that second series and how that came to be, because you go from a centralized location where in the Sweetwater Springs series where everything happens, or for the most part, it's central location. And now you have a traveling duo. So tell us about the bucket list mysteries and how they came to be.
Well, like I said, I really wanted to do something with dual main characters. And I got into it before I really thought long and hard about how hard it was going to be. Because, I mean, as you know, cozy mysteries, everything happens because you have connections. You know, you're in this small town and somebody knows somebody, and that's how the sleuth gets all her information. Well, when you're in a town in an RV and you don't know anybody, how are you going to find out the forensics report, you know? And so I'm like, why did I not think of this? So that took a little bit of hard thought as to how I could get this to happen without it being too outlandish. You know, you still want it to be halfway believable. Although cozy mysteries, nothing in there is actually doable. I mean, a lot of it, you don't find out, you know, a report in one day.
Right.
But
You don't partner with the police, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so I had to
Exactly.
figure that out. And then the second thing that I did in that series, of course, I do have Izzy, my Schnauzer in Sweetwater. That she's just my pet. Well, in Bucket List, I thought, oh man, cozy mystery authors, they love cozy mystery readers, love animals, and I got to put some animals in here. So I gave both of them a dog, and not thinking about having to travel in an RV with a
Mhm.
German Shepherd and a Scottie, because let's see, Maisie has a Scottie named Angus, and she's a retired homicide detective from Chicago. So she has a retired police dog named Magnum. And so they're all four in that little RV. And then of course they're traveling and they're out sleuthing, and you can't mistreat the pets. You will get blasted if, you know, in reviews. I'm like, they can't just leave these dogs in this RV all day, and they can't take them with them everywhere. And what am I going to do? So that's another thing I didn't think about. So guess that's one of the bad things about being a pantser and not a plotter. Think that through. Because the first book in that series is set at the retirement, at the little 55 and over place where they live. And so I didn't have to worry about any of that. But then once they got the RV at the end of book one and hit the road to go to Nashville, I'm like, oh crap, they've got to do something with these dogs. But it's been fun trying to figure all that out. But it was definitely a challenge.
I would think so. And you mentioned that one of the main characters in the second series is retired Chicago police officer. Why Chicago?
You know, I don't know. I don't know. It just kind of popped into my head, like a lot of things do. I don't know. I don't know why I picked that. In my head, she's kind of like the Sandra Bullock Miss Congeniality character, and I don't even know where that was based, but she's married to the job for years and years and never did anything but work, never been married, and everything in her closet is navy blue and black and boring. And she was married to the love of her life for years and years, and everything is crazy and colorful, and she loves music and going dancing, country line dancing and all this stuff. And all Dot is about is she's a black belt, and she's a firearms expert and all this stuff. And so they are so total opposites. Maisie loves to eat biscuits and gravy, and Dot is all about running and swimming her laps. And, you know, so it's it's fun to see them, Maisie trying to get her to lighten up and Dot trying to get Maisie to get a little bit of exercise and, you know, get healthy. And so, but that's fun too, to throw the two of them into an RV together with their dogs.
And so having a former police officer turned sleuth, it was there any learning curve into how Dot is going to approach a case differently than Glory in your other series, who is amateur and, you know, just a member of a community, but now you actually have a police officer who has some training and a definite skill set, right?
Yeah. Dot, Maisie is actually one that dragged Dot into all of it. Dot didn't want to. She was, you know, retired, done with it. And so the very first time, she's the one that talks Dot into, hey, let's try to figure out what happened. And Dot, she follows the rules and everything, but she's not, she's always careful to stay. She doesn't want to cross, you know, step on toes. She knows how that feels. So she tries to not, you know, just like jump in there and try to tell anybody what to do as far as the actual people in charge. But yeah, I've had to do a lot of research on that kind of thing about, you know, procedural stuff. In Sweetwater series, of course, Glory, she does whatever she wants, and she's dating the chief detective, and he's always trying to rein her in, and you know, the same thing. So one thing about, I still haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do, but in Hot Cars and Homicide, well, that'll be the last. They announced their wedding, and so
Oh,
how am I'm not sure of what it's going to do to write for two people, you know, to write for both of them as a couple, because it's always been her sticking her nose in and him like, stay out of the, you know, let us do our job kind of thing. But do I want, I've read them both ways. I've read different ones where they become a team and he accepts the fact that she's never going to stop sticking her nose in.
yeah.
Or is it going to continue with her, you know, like going behind his back and trying to get away with it, and him just, yeah. I haven't decided about how that relationship's going to be. I'm looking forward to writing it with a whole different dynamic once they're an actual couple.
Mm-hmm. And so that's the series, the Sweetwater Spring series. There's 7 books and a novella, right? And the novella was the prequel, like where you kind of
Yes.
explained.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like before she ever moved back home to Alabama.
Okay. Oh, let's talk about that, because she goes to Alabama because she lost her husband,
Right.
and she's wanting to, like, you know, like refresh her life, go home to where things are comfortable for her, because her life has been upset. And what I read, but what I don't know, and don't give anything away, but it sounds like her husband's death is not from natural causes. So is that part of like a thread through the
Yes,
series?
when he was killed, um, she was convinced that it wasn't. The police said it was a mugging, when he was on a business trip. And she kept saying that she didn't feel like it was, that he would not have been where he was. There was something fishy about where he was and all this. And so they ended up really not ever solving it, but she gave up, you know, hounding them for a while. And so she just decided that that she was just gonna move. And her daughter was back at the University of Alabama and college. And so she decided to go back, back home. Um, but, um, but yeah, the first, like every book has its own mystery that gets solved, but the first 6 books have that overarching, she still talks about, Dave's death not being solved and how that weighs on her and stuff. And then finally, I think, over those first 6 books, in the 5th and 6th books, for sure, they start looking into it a little more. And on the 6th book, they solve that as well.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I always tell everybody, don't read book 6 first. You can read any of the others standalone, but don't read 6, because that will has spoilers for the the other stuff. But
Mhm.
and so book 7, I thought I was kind of done with 6.
Yeah.
I solved the big crime and I did all the little ones, and that's when I started writing bucket list. But everybody was like, when are we going to go back to Sweetwater? When are we going back to Sweetwater? So I thought, well, you're supposed to write in 3s, I guess. I've always heard, write in 3s so you can bundle them and so. And so I decided I was going to try 3 more. So Hot Cars and Homicide is the first of those 3. And
Okay.
then I'll have 2 more. I've pretty much figured out what those are going to be, but I haven't actually started them yet. So
And so going back to the bucket list mysteries, that's going well because you have 3 of those and also a prequel, right?
yeah, it's not a prequel
Oh,
as such. It's it is, but it's a flashback. What I did was in between when I finished the second one, Boot Scoot and Bump Off, I was asked to be in an anthology with Tanya Kappas and a bunch of other authors, and those had to be those had to include something totally original, never been published. So I decided to take an opportunity to write something connected to one of my series so I could have something else to give away or to put in there. And so I didn't want to go back and do a prequel, so I did a novella that was a flashback. And so to see, like, Dot is telling Maisie her backstory of how she decided she wanted to be a homicide detective. What made you decide you wanted to do that? So it flashes back to 1977, 76, 77, and in Chicago. And so she and some of her friends, that summer of that year, how they stumbled on a murder and solved it. And so what I do is, and I like it. I think I've gotten a little bit of mixed reviews about jumping back and forth, but they're sitting on the front porch in Florida at their retirement home, and she's talking, and then it flashes back. But each chapter, will flash back to the actual crime, and then they'll come back to the porch and she'll talk a few minutes and go get a glass of tea and say, hey, so I love this, but what happens next? I can't wait to hear what happens next, kind of thing. And then they jump back. But I mean, I like the way it goes, and I think it flows good, but I'm not sure everybody likes that jumping back and forth thing. But anyway, that's what that is. So it kind of tells Dot's backstory and why she is the way she is and what made her fall in love with detective work and everything. So
Well,
it kind of fits in between, and you meet her 3 best friends from back then, and one of those is in book 3, the one that's in Savannah and Tybee Island. It's a girl's trip to meet her. And so you get to meet her ahead of time, and then she plays a big part in book 3 because they're on a girls' weekend at Tybee, and so she's real involved in that.
well, I like the idea of a traveling. I like the idea of both of them. An ongoing, Cabot Cove-esque locale, and then the traveling friends. I think that's great. I hope you are getting to do some traveling to these locations as part of your research for your
Well,
stories.
Yeah, well, we went to Tybee. We had been before, but when I knew I wanted to write that book, we went back because it had been a while, and I took a lot of pictures and just did a lot of research. One of the things in Tybee that I've always loved or thought I would love to go to is they have the annual Pirate Fest in October, and so that's in this book. I really wanted to go to it, but we just couldn't get over there in October. So, but it is in the book, and I read a lot about it, and it'd be a blast, I think. But yeah, and the lighthouse, and of course we toured all of that, and it's included, and a lot of some of the restaurants and the statue. I love the Waving Girl statue in Savannah, and the house where Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, that's in there, and all my favorite places in Savannah. So it was fun. And of course, I've been in Nashville. I'm not a country music fan, believe it or not. I don't really like it at all. I have like one personal friend whose son actually he won musician of the year the other night at CMA's, Charlie Worsham. But
Wow.
they're from Grenada, which is where we were years ago, and our kids grew up together. But that's the only country music I listen to. And actually, Charlie is the pattern for the person, the musician, the artist that's in Boot Scoot and Bump Off. And I had his mother and dad read any excerpts that I felt like people would figure out, because I mean, I know a lot of Grenada people read my books too, and they know Charlie personally, and I didn't want anything I said to make Charlie look bad,
Yeah.
and so or offend anybody, and so I let some Grenada people read it first, and his parents signed off on it before. But anyway, all that to say, yeah, I don't even do country music, but I do love Nashville and the Ryman and all that good stuff.
So, you now have 2 series under your belt, and I'm just kind of curious, what are your lessons learned? And, especially when you started out, you weren't necessarily going to write a series, but you realized you had more stuff to include, so that you decided to write a series. What have you learned along the way that fellow writers might benefit from learning through you?
Well, the number one thing that I learned, and I still am not doing a good job of it, is especially if you think it might turn into a series, is a series Bible, because oh my word, it is so hard. And I mean, 1 or 2 books, 3 books, but when you get to 7, especially when I took such a big break between 6 and 7, I had to go back and reread them all to get back into Sweetwater Springs. But also, I can't remember, what I said about this person, or what street this was on, or what general names I had used for townspeople or things like that. And so that has been a very big struggle. And I'm praying one of these days I'll get a mega fan that will want to just put it all together for me. I read all your books. Can I please do that? And I was like, yeah. But and then, of course, I didn't learn my lesson, because I haven't even been doing it in bucket list either, but I really, really, really need to do that. And the other thing I think is, and this has nothing to do with publishing really, but a map. I love maps of your small towns. And I would love to have one now that's on like a little card that I could give away or whatever. I went back and tried to draw a map of my town, and it is like, there is no way. I was like, what was I thinking? You can't even get to there from there. I was like, why did I not think of that? It would have been so cool to have something like that, but my town is all over creation. So that's not going to work. But as far as publishing goes, the publishing part, it's not as hard as I thought it would be. And again, I didn't even try the route of pitching to anybody. I did do a thing at Killer Nashville. I went to a round table with some other authors, and we read. This was when I was writing Boot, Scoot, and Bump Off, and so it's the first few pages of it that we had to read at the table, and that was scary.
Yeah.
Reading in front of other people and an agent. And he loved it. And he said, I would love to have this. And he said, your characters are fantastic, and you describe them so wonderfully. And he said, but you've already published the first book in this series, and we can't publish book 2 because you published book 1. And so he said, but if you want to write something else and send it to me, but I just never have. Which, part of me was like, ooh, that sounds cool. But then I'm just like, nah, I'm too tired and old.
Well, there's still time too, right?
Yeah, true. I do have a 3rd series that I've already
there you
bought the
go.
covers for. But if you've read Caramelized Casualty, which is a novella the Christmas novella that is the only other thing out there, it's a girl who is the manager of a ski resort in Colorado, and they're having a huge gingerbread house thing for a charity, and they've got all these celebrity chefs coming in. And so anyway, it's kind of a celebrity chef thing. And so after that, she decides that she's done with cold weather, and she needs to get to somewhere tropical and just relax after she goes through all of that. So she goes, and then I have another one. It's not out there. I use it as a giveaway because it's one of those, it's not quite long enough to be published. So it's called Killer Vacation, but it follows that. It's when she goes on her little vacation. Well, I've bought the covers to Paradise Cove, Cozy Mysteries is what it's kind of going to be, but it's some little bungalows that she stays in on that second trip. On that trip that she decides that she's going to buy them. They're for sale. And so she's going to move there and run those little bungalows instead of running a resort. And so it'll be a tropical island kind of thing. So I've already got that, but I haven't written anything except the 2 novellas yet.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking when you were talking about the pirate convention, I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called.
Pirate Fest.
Yeah, Pirate Fest, that you want to be able to attend. And I was like, well, that's a personal bucket list. And also you want to someday live in a tropical locale. So now you've got this other series that you can add to your bucket list to actually maybe go live, to experience your new characters.
That's one of those
lifestyle.
I'm really, really going to push my husband to let him to say, yes, I need to go to one of these places for about a week or 2 weeks, just to take notes of, obviously, it's for work.
Yeah. Yes,
I don't know if he'll buy that.
Yes, it's necessary expense. Okay. So believe it or not, we are coming up on the end of our hour. I know we started a little bit later than we normally do, but we have been chatting for an hour. It is so easy to talk with you, and you are very interesting. And as I said before, really being new to writing and have accomplished as much as you have is very impressive. And so congratulations on your success. We have a program through Sisters in Crime. It is called Murder by the Book. And once a month, at the first weekend of the month, on a Saturday, we get together by Zoom. It's free, it's open to the public, and we chat about the books that we've been reading and how we liked them. So as a complement to that, I have been asking our guest authors to share a book with us that they've read. It doesn't have to have been recently, but a book that you have read that you recommend other readers pick up to enjoy. So do you have anything to share with us?
Well, I would say 99% of what I read is cozy mysteries. So obviously it would be a cozy. Um, I think my favorites right now, are Hope Callahan. Do you know who
Mhm.
Hope Callahan is?
Yeah.
She writes a series that I love that's a cruise ship mystery, and I love that. I've only been on one cruise in my life, but I love her cruise ship mysteries. They're very good. Um, and I was going to have the title of the book, but I just finished her newest in that series. And CC James. No. Tanya Kappas. I'm in the middle of her latest in the Kenny Lowry series, which I love. It's probably my favorite of hers. And I think anything by those two, I found my telephone. I could tell you exactly the name of the one I just finished. Hang on just one second. I had everything all together. And so the one that I'm just finished on with the cruise ship mysteries is called just went away. It was a Christmas one. So sorry. Christmas Chaos, I believe. Anyways, Millie's Cruise Ship Mysteries. And that's really any of her cruise ship mysteries, I think, are probably my favorites of everything. And then I've just started Deborah Malone's local series with Death in Dahlonega. And so I'm excited. I bought the whole series when she spoke at our Christian authors group the other night, and I'm so excited to get started in that too. I just started Death in Dahlonega. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. But one last question before we go. This is from Linda Foster. She joins us from South Africa, Kenya. And it's right there in her comment. Anyway, she wants us to ask you about your flamingo collection.
I don't know. I think because I love tropical things, and I just started collecting them. And I've got a whole bathroom that's all my guest bathroom. It's all flamingos, and I had a friend that gave me a whole bunch of yard flamingos as a joke last year, and we put them out in the front yard and put skeletons on them for Halloween.
Yeah.
And they were riding the flamingos up the yard. But I just love them. I think there's a place in Florida where you can go and just walk around with them and feed them and pet them, and I want to go. I said that's on my bucket list too.
Well,
She,
Linda recommends Kenya, and she
Oh, really?
says, yeah, she says there's a lake there full of flamingos.
she also points out that Kenya is an equatorial tropical location.
Oh.
Okay.
Down in Key West at the Butterfly Conservatory, you can sign up to do something called Flamingle. And so once a day, 6 people are invited into the gazebo area of the Butterfly Observatory for the 2 resident pink flamingos to come and hang out with you. And they're named Rhett and Scarlet.
Oh, cute.
And it's pretty amazing.
Cool. Yeah. That's cool. That's a little closer than Kenya. I might could make it to that.
You might be able to talk your husband into that one, huh?
Yeah, that's closer.
All right. Well, everyone, I appreciate you spending your Saturday morning with us. I have certainly enjoyed chatting with Sarah, getting to know her a little bit better. And I'm gonna toss it to Lance to sign us off.
Can I just say hey to Kathy, one of my good friends from church? She's on, Kathy Ham.
Absolutely. Hi,
Thank
Kathy.
you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Kathy.
Well,
sorry, I was muted. Thank you.
well, it's really good to have you here, Kathy. And of course, SC Merritt, what a great story of your journey to writing and publishing and phenomenal output, an inspiration to all writers. And thank you for being here on your Saturday morning. And thank you to all that are here, including Kathy and Deborah, who was here earlier. She had to go for another meeting. And of course, Linda for making the trip all the way across the water from Kenya. And Tanisha, we haven't heard from you, but we're glad you were here today. And good to see you, Mary.
Yeah, this was great.
Good. Just to follow up on Dawn's comment about Murder by the Book, that will be on the 7th of December at 10 o'clock. And you can, if you're not on our emailing list, and I think everybody here now is, but you can email syncatlanta@gmail.com and I'll send you the link for Murder by the Book. So that's on the 7th, and then on the 14th, which is the second Saturday, regular chapter meeting date, we're going to have a holiday potluck with a book exchange. And that's where it was a lot of fun last year, very successful. And you bring a mystery in reasonably good condition, a mystery thriller genre, wrapped so that no one can see the title. And then go from there to trading and stealing, and everybody winds up with a book, maybe not the exact book they wanted, but a book anyway. So that's a lot of fun, and it's potluck, and it's at the Smyrna Library. Starts at 10:30 and goes to around 12.
What's the date on that
Smyrna
again?
Library?
I'm sorry?
What was the
You said
date
the
on that?
Smyrna Library. I'm sorry.
It's not Smyrna Library. Thank you.
Okay, great. I was like,
All that talk about Smyrna, but it's in the Decatur Library on the ground level in the meeting room. And it starts around 10:30 and it's not no program. It's just going to go till everybody's had all they want to eat and everybody's got a book. So that's on the 14th of December, second Saturday, as usual. Now, Dawn, are we having an off the shelf in December?
We are not. It is just really difficult with the holidays to get that scheduled. So we're taking a break in December. Hopefully we'll start with new vigor in January. I already got some people lined up.
Good. So that'll be the 25th of January.
Okay.
Yeah, fourth Saturday, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we have a regular meeting on January. That would be the 11th. We have a speaker from the DeKalb County Medical Examiner's Office. And I don't think she's bringing a corpse with her, but she'll have some interesting stories. And then we can ask her about opportunities for touring the morgue if we have enough interest. Got one yes in there right away. So that pretty much takes it up. And of course, we'll have a new slate of officers come January, and the voting is not completed yet. But if you haven't voted already, please send an email to syncatlanta@gmail.com. And with that, I think we're going to close it out. Did I leave anything out?
Sarah was just wanting to confirm the date for the book exchange, right, Sarah?
Yeah,
14th of December.
14th.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good deal.
Second Saturday, so the usual. at the Decatur Public Library.
Yes. 215 Sycamore Street, 30030. Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording.
Right.